The first round of no movement days ends today. We are back to restricted movement next Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. But whatever day it is, I hope you're following the COVID-19 protocols. They are in place to minimize the spread of the virus and risk of hospitalization. Remember to sanitize, mask up, maintain your distance and vaccinate. Welcome to Jamaica Magazine. For those of you staying at home as directed, we here at the JIS have packaged an informative show. Stay tuned. The news is up next.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, August 24, 2021. The Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency, PICA, is now in a much better position to detect forged documents with its new document forensic laboratory. The facility was officially opened last Thursday with $20 million in support funding from the UK government. Chief Executive Officer of PICA, Andrew Winter, says over the last 5 years, the agency has uncovered approximately 700 cases of persons using fraudulent or forged documents to obtain benefits.
In order for us to be able to identify these documents and to ensure that criminals are not successful, we need this document forensic lab, which can look at documents in a forensic way to identify how they lift the documents, how they make the changes to the documents. And these changes are not visible to the naked eye. But by doing the forensic analysis of the document, the ink, the paper, how the kind of paper, we will be able to detect these things.
Mr. Winter says each year PICA processes an average of 200,000 passport applications, 4,000 citizenships, and approximately 4 million visitors to the island. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of National Security, Senator Matthew Samuda, says the government remains resolute in improving border security.
This sort of investment moves us into the 21st century. It moves us into being able to say to our partners, to businesses locally who have to use passports to verify identity, that they can trust the systems that we have in place. Now, that trust is particularly important as we seek to become a digitized society, as we seek to grow our country in the 21st century.
To date, 30 employees have been trained to use the necessary equipment. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says government is taking a three-pronged approach to tackling crime and violence on the island.
We will make the necessary legal changes to ensure that we have the right mix of policies to address this specific kind of challenge which faces the Jamaican state. The police has engaged in surge operations, and that would have been accompanied, you would have noticed, by the establishment of some curfews in some areas. And it is having an impact.
The Prime Minister's comments follow a 10% surge in murders for the first 8 months of 2021 when compared to this time last year. Police statistics show that 4 of the 5 police divisions in Kingston and St. Andrew, as well as the tri-parishes of Westmoreland, Hanover and St. James, account for 60% of all murders committed in 2021.
We give the commitment to the Jamaican people that we continue to work very hard despite the challenges.
Over $400 million has been secured to expand the National Social Housing Program. The initiative, which is in its first phase, has been allotted $500 million by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. However, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the state was able to get an additional $400 million to scale up the program from 259 to 520 units in the fiscal year.
Part of the deal is that you become ambassadors for peace, for positive thinking and a positive outlook, and how people who maintain hope, that eventually their hope will be rewarded.
Mr. Holness was speaking Friday as he handed over 2 3-bedroom units to families in West Central St. Andrew. The units were each built at a cost of $8 million. Still on housing, on Friday, the Prime Minister broke ground for the construction of houses for 12 families in Bellrock, West Central St. Andrew, whose dwellings were destroyed by fire in 2019. Mr. Holness says construction was delayed mainly to facilitate the development of a proper sewerage system, which is funded to the tune of $100 million by the National Water Commission and the National Housing Trust, NHT. He says additional lands are being sought to construct more houses to replace other dwellings in Bellrock.
We are still looking in the community for properties that we can purchase and redevelop. And the West Central St. Andrew Trust is looking to spearhead that, because we have taken the view that if we're going to develop the community, yes, we have to develop the people's minds, but we also have to improve the conditions under which people live.
403 Justices of the Peace, JPs, are now serving Manchester, following last Thursday's commissioning ceremony for 60 newly minted JPs in Mandeville. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck is encouraging the JPs to not only fight against societal problems, but also the pandemic by reinforcing accurate vaccination messages.
I'm going to be dependent on the JPs across the island to be the voice of enlightenment, to be the voice of persuasion, to urge community members to participate. The sooner 60% of the island can get vaccination, the greater the likelihood that we can start returning to normality.
Minister Chuck says while he's hoping that vaccination does not become mandatory in Jamaica, he believes that more should be done to convince citizens of the importance of the vaccine. And finally, operations at the island's courts have been adjusted as a result of the announcement of no movement days. The changes were made on August 23 and 24 to include full and early closure, and will again take place on August 30 and 31. Other changes include the suspension of reporting conditions for bail by persons to police stations. This will be reinstated after the expiration of no movement days. Parish courts will only hear emergency matters, and new dates are already assigned for matters that were listed on no movement days. In relation to persons with matters listed at the Corporate Area Civil Court for August 23 and 24, they are to attend on Wednesday. The Traffic Court will only be airing matters where persons have been arrested on warrants. Cases for August 23 and 24 have been rescheduled for October 11 and 12. The Judiciary of Jamaica says while the courts are exempt under the Disaster Risk Management Act, the changes are necessary due to challenges for some persons to appear in court and also for staff who require public transportation. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
The best indicator of Jamaica's capacity in managing the health system would be the number of beds that we have. And we have to be very careful about how we as a country loosen our measures, because very rapidly this virus could spread and the number of beds that we have could easily be used up. That would throw us into a crisis. It was not so long ago, in February, that we approached that crisis level. We do not want to get there again.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
So much has happened in Jamaica within the last week, and government is working on implementing plans and laws that will make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Jamaica House Weekly is next.
Prime Minister announces 7 days of no movement to curb the spread of COVID-19, receives 600,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine, and delivers latest unit under the social housing program. You're watching Jamaica House Weekly. I'm Carrie-Ann Smith-McIntosh.
Our case numbers are unacceptably high and rising, and the rate of hospitalization is beyond, and I want to stress this, beyond the capacity of our health system to cope.
That, among other reasons, led Prime Minister Andrew Holness to announce 7 days of no movement and revise the COVID-19 containment measures. During Thursday's press conference at Jamaica House, the Prime Minister said the 7 no-movement days would be spread over the next 3 weeks, starting August 22 and ending on September 5. Non-essential service businesses have been ordered closed at midday on the Friday before the no-movement days come into effect, allowing persons to procure essential items. Places exempted from this midday closure include restaurants, grocery stores, security firms, light, water and gas providers, transportation, finance and health services. Curfew hours during the week are 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. and on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Following the 3-week no-movement days, the regular curfews will be 7 p.m. on weekdays, 6 p.m. on Saturdays and 3 p.m. on Sundays. As he urged Jamaicans to stay home, the Prime Minister gave a stern warning to persons who wish to flout the rules.
The police will be on the road, and they have been given clear instructions to enforce these no-movement days.
At Thursday's press briefing, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced other restrictions to stem the rising COVID-19 cases. Among them, places of worship, including Sunday worshippers, will be restricted to 20 persons in attendance. There is also a 20-person limit for weddings and annual or extraordinary general meetings. The general public gathering limit remains at 10 persons. Only virtual events will be allowed for public entities. No funerals will be allowed during the period August 25 to September 7. Burials are allowed Mondays to Fridays, excluding no-movement days between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Only 15 persons are to attend burials, which are to last no longer than 30 minutes. And the current work-from-home directive given to public sector workers remains in effect until September 7. In the meantime, Prime Minister Andrew Holness is reminding persons that the new curfew measures, including no-movement days, will not affect the state's vaccination program. Sites will remain open to accommodate appointments.
Persons will be required to present evidence of the appointment. They can show their text message if they get one or the email. If they're going for their second shot, they can show that their vaccination card. Obviously, this is not a wholesale extension. Your direction of travel must be going to a site.
A similar directive has been issued to children 12 years and older.
All students who will be going to schools to get vaccinated on no-movement days should have the messages that their schools would have sent them and their school IDs as proof that they're going to be vaccinated.
The vaccinations were made possible through the August 19 donation of 204,000 of the expected 600,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine by the United States government.
But I want to start by saying a heartfelt thank you to President Biden, Vice President Harris, the entire United States government, and the people of the United States for this very generous donation of Pfizer vaccine, which you are seeing behind me here.
On the weekend, Prime Minister Andrew Holness confirmed that the entire Council of Ministers are fully vaccinated. These include cabinet ministers, the Attorney General, and ministers of state. In the meantime, Mr. Holness says 93% of government members of the Houses of Parliament are fully vaccinated. According to the Prime Minister, 46 of the 48 government members of the House of Representatives are fully vaccinated. In the Senate, 11 government senators are fully vaccinated. One is awaiting the second dose, while another is not yet vaccinated.
Registered online vendors, businesses and delivery operators registered on the N system will be able to operate after curfew until midnight on no-movement days.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness sharing that Jamaicans can now get supplies from 84 vendors on the e-commerce National Delivery System ENS platform. A full listing of approved service providers can be viewed at ens.gov.jm. The National Works Agency is reporting that the passage of Tropical Storm Grace has caused almost $172 million in damage. Prime Minister Holness says several communities were affected, mainly by silt which blocked drains resulting in flooding of major roadways. 6 parishes, Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Thomas, Portland, St. Mary and Clarendon were mostly impacted. The Prime Minister says 198 roads across the island were affected, including the collapse of the bridge at Troy in Trelawney.
We will make the budgetary allocations, of course, to return those roads to usable conditions as quickly as possible.
Mr. Holness, in the meantime, says Jamaica will also be assisting with Haiti's recovery efforts. The neighboring island has been rocked by a 7.2 magnitude earthquake and later doused by Tropical Storm Grace, both of which have left thousands of persons dead and countless more homeless.
I want Jamaicans to be assured that we are not distracted. We are managing everything all at once. And what you can be assured of is that you have a driver who has his hands on the wheels at all times, dealing with all the challenges that we face.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness's assurance as the security forces report a 10% increase in murders when compared to this period last year. According to the Prime Minister, the state has stepped up measures to control the spike, including legislative changes, ordering of curfews, and making more resources available to fight crime. By Friday, the Prime Minister was in West Central St. Andrew delivering 2 3-bedroom units on the government's National Social Housing Program. He used the opportunity to announce that the initiative had secured an additional $400 million.
That will expand what we will be able to do. So the 259 that we are doing now, who knows, maybe we can now do 510 or 520.
So far, the program has delivered 41 of the 259 units expected to be built in the fiscal year. And finally, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has extended heartfelt condolences to the family of former Member of Parliament for South West St. Anne, Ernest Smith. Mr. Smith died last Wednesday at age 70. Prime Minister Holness remembered the former MP and attorney for his larger-than-life personality and devotion to his constituents and the practice of law. And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Our children have been out of school for a year and a half. The impact on their education is significant and it will be long-lasting. As a responsible government, we cannot place the education of your children, our children, at risk. There is a ray of hope, and that hope comes in the form of the vaccine.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Were you prepared for Tropical Storm Grace? Me neither. Grace could have easily leveled up to a hurricane and caused even more flooding and disruption to electricity and water supply. Still, the storm was a necessary reminder that the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season is unpredictable, so we have to always be prepared.
For the 2021 season, we could have anywhere between our best case scenario and our worst case scenario. In the best case, we are expecting to see at least 13. We expect to see about 13 tropical storms, of these 6 becoming hurricanes and 3 of them being major hurricanes. But the worst case, what we are seeing now, which of course could be adjusted as we move to the center or the middle of the hurricane season, this worst case is saying we could actually have 20 tropical storms. We could have 10 of these becoming hurricanes, and of these 10, 5 of these could be major hurricanes.
This is our second hurricane season in the midst of a pandemic. Indeed, these are trying times. The concurrent health and weather events put our emergency systems and response readiness to the test. The government applauds our frontline workers and emergency management personnel for their hard work during this most challenging circumstance. Like we have done successfully in the past year, Our strategy must be to anticipate, plan, and prepare for the threat, not to panic if or when it materializes. I appeal to you, the members of the public. Disasters will happen. You should get prepared.
The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management are working closely with the municipal corporations and the various stakeholders that we are in a state of readiness. We are almost 100% ready in terms of our shelters. There are 867 shelters island-wide, and we have done assessment on almost 90% of shelters across the island. The question has been raised about isolations in regards to COVID-19. All our shelters are equipped with isolation areas so that persons, if they come down with COVID, will be relocated to these shelters. We are making preparations in terms of relief supplies. The ODPEM is in a position to provide relief supplies. It will be concentrating our efforts on a very comprehensive public relations program by having virtual town hall meetings across the country. Jamaica Fire Brigade and all our first responders is in a state of readiness.
Throughout this program, the ODPEM seeks to ensure a constant stream of emergency supplies, inclusive of relief items, emergency response supply items. These readily available response to emergencies and disasters such as flooding and earthquake.
The cleaning of the country's priority drain infrastructure is another area of critical focus, and I am aware that the NWA has already started its mitigation mobilization.
We have taken measures in the health sector to ensure that should we need to respond to an adverse weather event, we are better able to because of what we've gone through over the last year and change. The Emergency Operations Center is significantly upgraded so that we can coordinate what we need to do. We understand the importance of our health facilities, and so we have taken measures to ensure that if something should happen, we are better able to withstand adverse weather events.
These are no longer normal times. The island remains vulnerable, however, to tropical cyclone strikes, so preparation is essential.
There's so much that we can do, but most importantly, it starts with ourselves, individually preparing.
If you're experiencing fever accompanied by nausea, vomiting, rash and joint pains, you may have dengue fever. But just to be sure, check with your healthcare professional. This next feature will tell you all you need to know about dengue fever and ways to eliminate the spread.
Dengue fever is a vector-borne disease carried by the Aedes aegypti mosquito. It is caused by the flavivirus and occurs in either a mild or severe form in tropical and subtropical areas of the world. Globally, 50 to 100 million cases of dengue are seen yearly.
Dengue is endemic to Jamaica, meaning that since its introduction in 1977, we have cases that occur every year. The cases of dengue fever, including severe dengue, can occur at any time throughout the year. An outbreak is declared when the number of cases increase above the usual that is expected for that time of the year.
Dengue is transmitted to humans by the bite of the infected female mosquito. Symptoms typically begin 3 to 14 days after someone gets infected with the virus. Symptoms can last from 2 to 7 days.
The incubation period is usually 4 to 10 days, and illness begins abruptly, and there are essentially 3 phases of the illness. First phase is where you have the fever. The second phase that you can go into is a critical phase, and then you have a recovery phase.
Over 70% of persons who contract the disease usually experience mild symptoms. Persons affected by the mild form of the disease may experience fever of 40 degrees Celsius or higher, headache, muscle pain, and bone and joint pain. Some people may also experience nausea, pain behind the eyes, swollen glands, vomiting, sore throat, rash, and diarrhea.
So you can see that it's a range of symptoms that can present, and therefore, when you initially present with dengue, it may be seen as different illnesses. It may be seen as gastroenteritis, it may be seen as an upper respiratory tract infection, or it can be seen as dengue fever.
To be on the safe side and put speculations aside, persons who start experiencing symptoms are advised to visit their health facility or doctor for medical advice and treatment. If indeed you have dengue, do not self-medicate with treatments that can worsen your illness or cause bleeding. So be sure to have a discussion about dengue with your doctor. The Health Ministry says doctors who recognize the presence of a fever should also have a high suspicion for dengue and treat with the necessary precautions. For mild cases of dengue, persons may treat themselves at home with specific types of over-the-counter medications, but heed the warning.
Fever and pain to the joints, pain to the muscles, must be treated with only medications that have cetamol, paracetamol, and Panadol. You can also use tepid sponging, fan therapy, and increased fluid to assist with decreasing the fever. Do not use medications that contain aspirin and other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs such as ibuprofen and diclofenac. You must read your labels carefully. If you are unsure, consult your pharmacist or your doctor before using the medication.
The drugs you should not take while experiencing dengue have been known to cause and/or worsen bleeding and increase the severity of the disease. For more information, please contact the Ministry of Health, 10 to 16 Grenada Way, Kingston 5. Call them at 876-633-8172, 876-633-7771. Information is on the web at moh.gov.jm, and contact can be made by email, pr@moh.gov.jm, or on social media.
We've come to the end of another informative show. Do visit our social media pages and our website, jis.gov.jm, for updates on the latest happenings in Jamaica. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch this and other programs. Until next time, remember to sanitize, wear your mask, distance as much as possible, and vaccinate. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Good evening.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.